white Texas female cop fulfilled a Mafia prisoner's last wish. His final request froze everyone. Her knuckles were white around the metal bars, the hum of the fluorescent lights slicing through the stale prison air. Officer Rachel Monroe had seen monsters in her career, killers who cried, liars who prayed, but none of them looked at her the way Vincent Romano did now. His voice broke the silence like a gunshot. "So you're the one they sent to walk me out. The last face I'll see before they flip the switch." He smiled, slow, dangerous, the kind of smile that carried more power than a loaded gun. She didn't answer. The rules said stay detached. No emotion, no pity, just another inmate on death row. But something about him, the stillness in his eyes, the way he carried the weight of his fate like a secret, made her heartbeat skip once, then again. His file said 23 confirmed kills. Mob enforcer, Mafia royalty, a man born into blood. Yet here he was, sitting calm and orange, shackled but somehow still in control. The warden's voice cut through the tension. "Romano's last request is approved. You've got 10 minutes, Officer Monroe. Keep it clean." He nodded toward her with that same lazy smile. "You might want to hear this, sweetheart. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, what time it is in your city, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you breathless." The guard unlocked the steel door. Rachel stepped inside, pulse tight, hand resting near her holster. Romano sat back in his chair, the chains clinking faintly as he gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit, officer. I won't bite. Not with all this metal between us." His tone dripped with charm. Not the playful kind, the kind that smelled like smoke and danger. She stayed standing. "What's the request?" she asked flatly. He looked her up and down, studying her like she was a puzzle. "You don't scare easy, do you?" "I like that." She didn't flinch. "You've got 9 minutes." He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "I want to see my daughter." Rachel blinked, her breath catching. The room seemed to tilt. His file made no mention of family. No next of kin. No visitation requests. Just silence. "You don't have a daughter on record," she said. He chuckled, low and bitter. "That's because she doesn't exist. Not to this place. Not to this world." He looked up, his expression sharp. "She's 16 now. Lives in Houston. And she doesn't know her father's dying tonight." Rachel's throat tightened. She'd handled last meals, final letters, even suicide notes, but never this. This was something deeper. Something human. He slid a small folded paper across the table. An address, scrawled in heavy ink. "Bring her this. Don't tell her who it's from until after it's over. Promise me, officer." Rachel hesitated, eyes flicking to the security camera. Everything was recorded. Every sound, every word. If she took that note, she'd be breaking protocol. But the look in his eyes wasn't manipulation. It was surrender. A father's last shred of love. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because you still got a soul," he said. "I can see it fighting behind those blue eyes." Her heart pounded. She should have walked out. Should have called the warden. But her hand moved before her mind did. She took the note. Slipped it into her pocket. His gaze softened for the first time. "Thank you, Rachel." The way he said her name felt too personal, too dangerous. She turned to leave, but he spoke again, voice like gravel. "Tell her I'm sorry. And tell her I did it for her." That sentence stuck in her chest long after the guards led him away. Hours later, she stood in the execution chamber, eyes fixed on the glass as the current surged. He didn't scream, didn't blink, just stared at her, calm, steady, until the light in his eyes faded into nothing. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. The folded note felt like a bomb in her jacket pocket. She kept seeing his face, the unshakable calm, the quiet heartbreak under all that steel. At 2:17 a.m., she gave up trying to fight it. She got dressed, grabbed her keys, and drove out into the dark Texas highway. The address led to a small house on the outskirts of Houston. The kind of place where life was simple, safe, untouched by the violence she'd just witnessed. Her headlights washed over the porch, and there she was, a teenage girl sitting on the steps, sketchbook in hand, unaware that her world was about to shatter. Rachel stepped out slowly, badge glinting in the moonlight. The girl looked up, startled. "You lost, ma'am?" Rachel's throat was dry. She reached into her pocket, fingers brushing the folded note. "This belonged to you," she said softly. The girl frowned. "Who's it from?" Rachel hesitated. In that second, she felt every weight of the choice pressing on her. Duty, truth, mercy. "Your father," she whispered. The girl froze. Her pencil dropped. "My father's dead," she said quietly. Rachel's heart broke. She held out the note. "He wanted you to have this." The girl took it, hands trembling, eyes scanning the handwriting. Tears filled her eyes before she even finished. She pressed the paper to her chest, like it was the last piece of him she'd ever get. Rachel turned away, ready to leave, but the girl's voice stopped her. Was he scared? Rachel paused. For a moment, she saw his face again, that eerie calm, that half smile. "No," she said finally. He wasn't scared at all. The girl nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you." Rachel got back in her car, her chest aching. As she started the engine, her radio crackled to life. Dispatch's voice came through, flat and cold. "Officer Monroe, report to headquarters immediately." She frowned. "Copy that. What's going on?" There was a pause. Then, the Romano case just got reopened. Something's not right with his confession. Her heart slammed in her chest. And just like that, the road ahead didn't look so clear anymore. Rachel gripped the steering wheel tighter as her radio went dead silent again, static hissing faintly through the speakers. The Romano case was reopened? That made no sense. She'd watched the man die. She'd seen the warden sign off, seen the body wheeled away. Cases didn't come back from the dead. Unless... "Your father," she whispered. The girl froze. Her pencil dropped. "My father's dead," she said quietly. Rachel's heart broke. She held out the note. "He wanted you to have this." The girl took it, hands trembling, eyes scanning the handwriting. Tears filled her eyes before she even finished. She pressed the paper to her chest like it was the last piece of him she'd ever get. Rachel turned away, ready to leave, but the girl's voice stopped her. Was he scared? Rachel paused. For a moment, she saw his face again, that eerie calm, that half smile. "No," she said finally. He wasn't scared at all. The girl nodded slowly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Thank you." Rachel got back in her car, her chest aching. As she started the engine, her radio crackled to life. Dispatch's voice came through, flat and cold. "Officer Monroe, report to headquarters immediately." She frowned. "Copy that. What's going on?" There was a pause. Then, the Romano case just got reopened. Something's not right with his confession. Her heart slammed in her chest. And just like that, the road ahead didn't look so clear anymore. ChatGPT said. Rachel gripped the steering wheel tighter as her radio went dead silent again, static hissing faintly through the speakers. The Romano case was reopened? That made no sense. She'd watched the man die. She'd seen the warden sign off, seen the body wheeled away. Cases didn't come back from the dead. Unless... Her gut twisted. Unless the man who died wasn't Vincent Romano. The thought hit like a bullet. She replayed the execution in her mind. The stillness, the way he'd looked at her, the calm that seemed too perfect. What if it wasn't calm at all? What if it was satisfaction? She pressed harder on the gas, headlights slicing through the dark highway. Her mind raced faster than the car. The note. The girl. Everything suddenly felt like part of something bigger, something planned. By the time she reached the precinct, dawn was crawling over the city, gray lights spilling across the parking lot. She slammed the car door and stormed inside, boots echoing down the hall. Captain Rodriguez was waiting near her desk, his face carved from stone. "Where the hell have you been, Monroe?" His tone was sharp, suspicious. She didn't answer right away, eyes scanning the mess of files on her desk. They were all labeled Romano, but the top sheet caught her eye, a morgue report. One line froze her blood. Her heart lurched. She turned to the captain. "You said the Romano case was closed." "It was," he said, "until an hour ago when the state lab called. The prints don't match." Rachel's chest tightened. "You're telling me the guy we executed last night wasn't Vincent Romano?" He looked at her hard. "I'm telling you, whoever died in that chair wasn't who he claimed to be. And the real Romano? He's gone." The room tilted. Every second she spent with that man replayed in her head. The steady eyes, the deliberate words, the note. He planned this. Every move. Even her. Rodriguez's voice snapped her back. The warden says you were the last person to see him before the execution. He gave you something, didn't he? Her pulse spiked. She fought to keep her face still. Just his last words. The captain stepped closer. Don't play dumb with me, Monroe. If he slipped you evidence, if you're holding anything that ties into this escape, I'll find it. She felt the note in her pocket like it was burning through her uniform. She couldn't hand it over. Not until she knew the truth. The captain sighed. You're on leave until further notice. Hand in your badge. Her heart stung. You can't. Now, Monroe. She pulled the badge from her chest and set it on the desk. He turned away before she could speak again. She left without another word. Outside, the Texas sun was rising, bright and merciless. She walked to her car, hands shaking, mind burning. Romano had fooled them all. The man who died was a decoy, which meant the real one was out there, and she just handed his daughter the proof that he still existed. She drove back toward Houston, her thoughts dark and sharp. Every mile brought more questions. If the body wasn't Romano, who was it? How did he pull that off from inside a maximum security prison? And why use her? When she reached the neighborhood again, the street was quiet. Too quiet. She slowed down, eyes narrowing. The girl's house, Lila's, was dark. Curtains drawn. No sign of movement. Rachel parked across the street, watching. Minutes crawled by. Then movement. A black SUV at the corner. Tinted windows. Engine off. Her instinct screamed. She opened her glove box, grabbed her sidearm, and slipped out of the car. The air was thick with tension, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She moved slowly, keeping low, circling toward the house. Then she heard it. A door slam. Voices. Male. Low, controlled. She crept closer, peeking around the porch. Two men in dark suits stood at the door, one holding a photo. The other scanned the street. Not cops. Not locals. Mafia cleanup. Rachel's chest went cold. They were here for Lila. She drew her gun and stepped out of the shadows. Federal officers. Hand where I can see them. Both men spun fast. One reached inside his jacket. She fired first. The shot cracked through the quiet morning, and he dropped. The other bolted toward the SUV, shouting into an earpiece. She sprinted after him, firing again. Glass exploded from the back window. The SUV roared to life, tires screeching as it tore down the street. Rachel didn't chase. She turned and ran inside the house. Lila was crouched behind the couch, eyes wide, shaking. Rachel knelt beside her. It's okay, you're safe. The girl's voice trembled. Who were they? Rachel hesitated. The truth would destroy her. The lie might save her. People who worked with your father. They think you know something. Lila shook her head. I don't know anything. Rachel's jaw tightened. He didn't tell you anything about what he was planning? Lila's eyes darted toward the kitchen table. Rachel followed her gaze. A small envelope sat there, untouched. Her stomach dropped. She walked over slowly, hands trembling as she opened it. Inside was a single photo. Romano, alive, standing near a private airstrip. Scrawled across the bottom. For her protection. Don't trust anyone. Rachel's breath hitched. He'd planned everything, even this. The fake execution, the decoy, the hitmen. He'd known they'd come after his daughter. And somehow, he'd used her as both shield and messenger. Lila's voice cracked. What's happening? Rachel stuffed the photo into her jacket. It's complicated. You need to pack a bag. We're leaving. Where? Somewhere safe. They didn't have time to argue. The sound of engines in the distance, 2, maybe 3 cars, echoed through the streets. Reinforcements. She moved fast, guiding Lila out the back door, across the neighbor's yard, into the alley. The girl stumbled, but didn't stop. By the time they reached Rachel's car, the first SUV had already turned onto the block. She shoved Lila inside and floored it, tires screaming as they disappeared into the maze of side streets. Every turn brought more chaos. They couldn't go home, couldn't go to the police. If Romano's network was still alive, they had eyes everywhere. Lila sat silent, clutching her knees. Rachel's mind burned. Romano wasn't dead. He'd used her as his ticket out. And now his enemies, or maybe his allies, wanted the girl gone. She needed to think like him, predict him. They reached the edge of the city. Rachel pulled into an abandoned truck stop and killed the engine. The silence felt deafening. Lila finally spoke. "You're a cop. Why are you helping me?" Rachel stared at her hands. "Because your father asked me to." Lila's face twisted in anger. "He ruined lives. He killed people." Rachel looked up, her voice low. "Maybe, but he also loved you enough to die trying to protect you." The girl turned away, tears streaking down her cheeks. Rachel leaned back in the seat, staring at the sunrise bleeding through the clouds. Every instinct told her to turn the girl in, report everything, clean her name. But another part of her, the part that had looked into Romano's eyes and seen something more than a killer, knew this wasn't over. Her phone buzzed on the dashboard. Unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then a voice, deep, familiar. "You kept your promise, Officer Monroe. I knew I could count on you." Her blood ran cold. Vincent Romano was alive, and he was watching. Rachel's grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles went white. The voice on the other end was calm, too calm, the kind of stillness that only came from someone who already had control. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she stared through the windshield at the empty highway ahead. The morning light cut sharp lines across her face, catching the reflection of her trembling fingers. Romano's voice slithered through the speaker again, low and measured, every word laced with something that felt like a trap. "You kept your promise. I knew you would." She couldn't breathe. For a second, she thought she might throw the phone out the window, crush it under her heel, pretend this wasn't happening. But his tone froze her in place. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he'd done it. Her voice came out rough, like gravel scraping glass. "How?" Her throat burned. "How the hell are you alive, Romano?" His chuckle was quiet, but it bled menace. "Death is just another deal, Officer Monroe. You should know by now. Nothing ends until I say it does." She could hear her heartbeat, loud and uneven. "What do you want from me?" There was a pause. Then, soft and deliberate, "To finish what I started." The line went dead. Rachel sat still for a moment, phone pressed to her ear, her lungs refusing to fill. She turned to Lila. The girl's eyes were wide, searching her face for answers she didn't have. Was that him? Rachel didn't answer. She shoved the phone into her pocket, started the engine, and slammed the car into gear. They had to move. The truck stop vanished in the rearview mirror, and all that remained was the rising sun and a long stretch of asphalt leading nowhere. Rachel's mind burned with 100 thoughts crashing together. His escape, the decoy, the network, the hitmen. She'd been a pawn in his game since the moment he asked for her. And now he was still playing. Lila finally spoke, voice trembling. "Why would he call you?" Rachel's jaw tightened. "Maybe because I'm the only one who can stop him. Or maybe, she thought, because I'm the only one who still can't walk away." They drove for hours, the silence thick between them. Rachel's instinct screamed that every mile brought them closer to something Romano wanted her to see. When they finally stopped, it was at an old roadside diner, half boarded up, the kind of place no one asked questions. She parked in the back lot, eyes scanning the perimeter. Nothing. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and dust. A waitress behind the counter gave him a nod, but Rachel ignored her and slid into a corner booth. Lila sat across from her, pale and restless, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Rachel took out her phone again, scrolling through the call log. The number was blocked. No trace. She dialed it back anyway. No answer. Lila's voice cracked. "You said you could stop him. How?" Rachel looked at her, really looked. The same eyes as her father. The same quiet fire. He hadn't just wanted to save her. He'd made sure she'd end up with Rachel. There was something in that. Something he'd planned. She reached into her jacket and pulled out the photo from the envelope. Romano, standing near that airstrip, looking straight into the camera. The message scrawled across the bottom still burned into her mind. For her protection. Don't trust anyone. Her stomach knotted. The words weren't just a warning. They were a map. An idea clicked, a memory from his last night in prison. The name he'd whispered to her before the guards led him away. A name she'd brushed off as meaningless then, but now it came back like lightning through her veins. Valencia. She muttered it under her breath. Lila frowned. What? Rachel leaned forward. Did your father ever mention something called Valencia? Lila shook her head. No. Rachel's eyes darkened. He did to me. Once. Before the execution. She didn't know why she was telling her this. Maybe because she needed to hear it out loud. Romano had said it quietly, like he was planting something inside her mind, waiting for it to bloom later. And now it had. Her phone buzzed again. New message. No name, no number, just a location pin. Somewhere on the outskirts of Corpus Christi. Rachel's chest tightened. Romano was leading her there. She stared out the window, heart pounding. Whatever trap he was setting, she had to walk right into it. Not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't let him win. She turned to Lila. We're going south. The girl's eyes widened. You think that's safe? No. She threw some cash on the table and stood. The waitress barely looked up as they left, the bell above the door jangling softly. The sunlight outside was harsh now, burning through the windshield as they drove. Every passing mile felt heavier, like Romano's shadow stretched across the highway itself. Hours later, they reached the coast. The air smelled like salt and heat, the wind rough against her face as she stepped out of the car. The address from a message led them to an abandoned shipyard. Rusted cranes, broken windows, silence. She scanned the area. Nothing moved. She walked ahead, gun drawn, motioning for Lila to stay behind her. Every sound, the crunch of gravel, the hum of distant waves, felt magnified. She could feel him here, watching, waiting. Then she saw it. A small warehouse near the docks, its doors half open. She approached slowly, finger tight on the trigger. Inside, light filtered through the broken roof, cutting through dust and shadows. A single chair sat in the middle of the floor. On it, a phone, and beside it, a folded sheet of paper. Rachel's pulse roared. She picked up the note. Welcome to the end of the trail, Officer Monroe. You wanted the truth. It's time you earned it. Take care of her. VR. Her stomach dropped. Then the phone on the chair lit up, ringing once. Twice. She answered. The voice was smooth, composed, too close. You found it. Good. Romano. She turned in a slow circle, scanning the shadows. Where are you? You're standing in my confession, he said. Look up. Rachel lifted her eyes. A projector flickered to life on the far wall, grainy video footage spilling across the concrete. It showed a man strapped to a gurney, the night of the execution. But the face wasn't Romano's. Her heart hammered. The camera panned, and there he was, standing just behind the observation glass, wearing an officer's uniform. Her uniform. The video froze. Romano's voice cut through the static. The man they killed was one of mine. I paid him to take my place. And you? You were my insurance. Rachel's hands trembled. Insurance? He laughed quietly. You believed in justice. That's why I chose you. You'd never stop digging. You'd lead them right to me without even realizing it. Her throat went dry. Why involve your daughter? Because, he said, she needed a protector, and I needed a distraction. Rage flooded her chest. You used me. You used her. He didn't deny it. I built my empire on control. But now I'm giving you both something no one ever gave me. A choice. The call ended. Rachel dropped the phone, her breath breaking. Behind her, Lila stepped into the light, eyes wide with disbelief. Is he here? Rachel couldn't answer. She just stared at the projection, still frozen on the wall. Her own reflection looking back at her from that night. The cop who believed in right and wrong. The woman who thought she could fix a criminal's soul. She wasn't sure that version of her existed anymore. Then from somewhere outside, an engine roared to life. Rachel's head snapped up. Through the broken window, she saw a black car speeding away down the docks, sunlight flashing off its roof. Her voice cracked as she yelled, Lila, stay here. She bolted out the door, sprinting across the gravel, gun in hand. The car was already a blur at the edge of the yard, dust and wind tearing past her face. She fired once, twice, but it didn't slow. The vehicle vanished beyond the fence, swallowed by the road and the rising heat. Rachel stood there, breath ragged, staring after it. She just looked into the eyes of a ghost, and realized the nightmare was only beginning. Rachel's lungs burned as she ran, gravel cutting into her boots, the echo of Romano's engine still vibrating through the air. The dock stretched endlessly, sunlight glaring off rusted metal and broken glass, each step driving her closer to the edge, closer to the ghost she refused to let escape again. Her gun felt heavy in her hand, her pulse louder than the roar of the sea below. Romano's car disappeared over the ridge, leaving only the smell of oil and the taste of fury in her mouth. She stopped, chest heaving, staring at the empty road. He was gone, but this wasn't over. She turned back toward the warehouse, heart pounding, every instinct screaming that Romano had just written his own ending. Inside, Lila stood near the flickering projector, the last frame still frozen on the wall. Rachel's face in uniform, mirrored against the image of the man she'd once believed she could save. For a moment, Rachel just watched her, the weight of every lie settling like ash inside her chest. "He used you," Lila whispered, her voice barely holding together. Rachel nodded slowly. He used everyone. But that's not what broke her. What shattered her was the look in Lila's eyes. Not anger, not betrayal, but grief. The kind that came from realizing your father was never the hero you imagined, but the monster you prayed didn't exist. Rachel holstered her gun, her movements mechanical, her mind racing through every detail, every word Romano had said. His empire, his backup, his confession. If he was still out there, then he'd left a trail, something she could trace. And for the first time since that prison execution, Rachel knew what she had to do. They left the shipyard before dusk. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of the sea and the sound of distant sirens. Rachel called it in, voice cold, steady, efficient. Backup units swarmed the area within the hour. Agents questioned, photographed, cataloged, but there was no sign of Romano. The car he'd used was found burning 2 miles out, its plates filed off, its driver unidentifiable. Another decoy, another ghost. By the next morning, the story hit national news. Mafia boss declared dead, now suspected alive. The headline screamed. Photos of Rachel circulated. The officer who had supposedly escorted a dead man to the electric chair. Whispers of conspiracy, betrayal, and secret deals followed her name like shadows. She ignored every one of them. The only thing that mattered now was Lila. She kept the girl close, away from the press, away from the bureau. Lila didn't speak much. Some nights, she sat by the motel window, staring out at the dark highway, waiting for a father who would never come back. Rachel tried to offer comfort, but her own guilt poisoned every word. Days turned into weeks. Each morning, Rachel checked the same encrypted inbox Romano had used before. And one morning, it came, a single message. No text, just a file attachment. She opened it. It was a surveillance photo, grainy, taken from a distance. Romano standing at a pier somewhere in Mexico. Same suit, same tattoo, same smirk. Rachel's jaw clenched. He was alive. And this time, she would end it herself. She packed the essentials, left a note for Lila, and drove south without looking back. Every mile between Texas and the border burned into her memory like penance. By the time she reached Veracruz, the sun was sinking low, bleeding orange across the water. The pier from the photo was there, real, silent, empty. She stepped out, gun ready, boots scraping against the wooden planks. The air smelled of salt and diesel, and somewhere far off, she heard faint music from a fishing boat. Then she saw him, standing at the end of the dock, hands in his pockets, as if he'd been waiting all along. Romano turned slowly, that same knowing smile on his lips. You came. Rachel's heart pounded, but her voice stayed steady. I had to. He nodded once, as if acknowledging the inevitable. She aimed the gun. It trembled, not from fear, but from everything he'd taken, everything he'd made her question. You could have stopped this, she said, voice cracking. You could have walked away. He laughed softly. And be ordinary? No, Officer Monroe. You don't walk away from who you are. Neither do I. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then he stepped closer, eyes dark with something almost human. I didn't call you here to fight. I called you here to end it. He opened his coat slowly, revealing the wound already bleeding through his shirt. The shot wasn't hers. Someone else had beaten her to it. His knees buckled, but he stayed standing, forcing a final breath through clenched teeth. I made too many enemies, Rachel. They wanted me gone, but I didn't want her to live without protection. You were supposed to be that. Her heart twisted. He stumbled, catching the edge of the railing, his voice fading. Take care of her. Don't let her become me. Rachel lunged forward, catching him as he collapsed. Blood pooled beneath them, warm and sticky, the sea wind sharp in her throat. His eyes flickered once, and then went still. For a long moment, the world was silent. She stood there, staring at the man who had haunted her every decision. The monster who had turned her into a mirror of himself. Ruthless, determined, unyielding. But as the tide rose and carried the last of his blood into the sea, something inside her shifted. For the first time in years, she felt free. The Bureau recovered the body 3 hours later. DNA confirmed his identity this time. No tricks. No decoys. It was over. Rachel returned to Texas weeks later, the headlines already fading, the world ready to move on. Lila waited for her outside the station, a small duffel bag at her feet. When Rachel stepped out of the car, Lila ran to her, burying her face against her shoulder. Did it end? She whispered. Rachel nodded, her throat tight. It did. They stood there for a long time, two broken souls bound by the wreckage of one man's empire. Until finally, Rachel whispered the truth she'd carried since that first night in the prison. Sometimes justice isn't clean. Sometimes it's survival. Lila looked up at her, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. What now? Rachel took a deep breath and looked out at the horizon, the sun burning gold over the Texas sky. Now, she said, we start over. And for the first time, she meant it. Even the darkest souls crave redemption, but not all of them deserve it. Justice isn't always found in the courtroom. Sometimes it's born in the ashes of what's lost. Rachel learned that peace doesn't come from revenge, but from the courage to walk away when the past still burns behind you. If this story gripped you, hit subscribe, drop a comment with your favorite moment, share this video, and stay tuned. The next story will shake you.